Beloved people of South Africa, this is Mandisa Mthembu, the voice of the voiceless, the incoming leader of the people of South Africa, the incoming Prime Minister. In the past few weeks, I was reading the Truth Commissions, the Skweyiya Commissions, and the Amnesty International Report Commissions. I was shocked, together with the Quadro camp that was happening in Angola during the exile. I was shocked to find out that what has happened to me, it is exactly what has happened to the victims of torture squads, to the victims who were victimized by apartheid and their friend ANC. My case is not isolated. The gang stalkings, the gossips, the arrests, the torture, the psychological warfare. These people, I'm telling their story. But the difference between me and them is that I'm producing receipts because I'm alive. I survived the tortures and the gaslighting by communities. In this community where I live in Palm Ridge, it's a RDP houses mixed with military veterans, the people who were in exile, the people who were recruited by ANC, PAC, who were recruited. They live in this, in my area. Most of them are my neighbors. So the people who were organizers of my abuse, Mthethwa, he's a PAC military veteran, famous for killing and murdering and raping people, victims in exile. Number two, Muzi, who's my next door neighbor from the left, a rapist, a Mozambican. He calls himself Muzi Kaba, but he's a Mozambican national. He's not authorized to live in this house, in this house that he lives in. He entered through the connection, the corrupt connection of ANC. He calls himself Muzi Kaba. He's the priest. He's the one who initiates cases. It doesn't work. His job is to initiate cases and project them to me in my house. He sends demons at night. He sends cases. He sends spells. He's a very, 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 very powerful warlock. But you will never tell because he's friendly with everyone. The third one, my next door neighbor. She's a woman. Her father was a PAC veteran as well. She's the gossiper. So these people are the organizers, the three main leaders of this thing. They are the organizers in the community for my harassment and gaslighting and gang stalking. So when I read this international amnesty report, because I'm an intelligent person, I'm a spiritual and I'm intelligent, I can read environments, I can read people, I can read their intentions, I can read systems, I can test systems if they really work. And I can translate spiritual things into the physical. So that is who I am. That is the core, my essence of who I am. So I read these things. I read these things, what was happening to these people. And I came to the conclusion that ANC was never the liberation movement. It is not a liberation movement. It is a satanic cult that thrives on fear and torture and domination. So I wrote this. Every video that I make, it's a receipt for the people of South Africa to judge for themselves. The ANC torture death squad existed during apartheid. It was orchestrated by the British imperialists to get these guys from ANC so that there's no war, so that they can just bring a delusion that is called democracy. And they are now dressed as leaders, MPs, government officials, judges, and community members, promoting counterfeit democracy with fake, unrealistic policies. While it's an open air prison in South Africa, we live in an open air prison. We live in an open air prison. It's like we are outside, but we are in a prison. We are in a matrix system, a satanic prison, where you are forced to bend your will, where you are forced to betray yourself, where you are forced to compromise your values, where you are forced to compromise truth. If you don't do that, you get punished. You get sidelined. You get outcast. So this is the reality we are living in South Africa. An open air prison, smell of blood, fear, and terror. The men who run the camps got suits and were rewarded with titles and positions in both government and shares in business industries. The poor men, victims who were victimized, who survived the camps, got nothing. And the imperialists and oppressors who made it possible got an embarrassing chip. In 1984, the year I was born, a young South African man named Ephraim Nkondo was dragged through Camp Quatro in Angola with a rope around his neck. By morning, he was dead. His crime was asking the African National Congress, ANC, for a democratic conference. The camp commander who presided over the final hours had been trained in Eastern Germany, Stasi. He was a teenager at that time. For those who do not know the ANC, a roach terrorist organization governing South Africa since 1994, put into power by media deception. 10 years later, that camp commander was a senior official at a national intelligence agency, the New Democratic South Africa. The man who gave him his orders held cabinet portfolios. The men who ran ANC counterintelligence while Castro torture squads operated became a president. The men who watched mutineers rounded up and became Minister of Defense. The men who ran special operations during the peak camp years became Minister of Intelligence. The Amnesty International's 1992 report was unambiguous. Camp torturers should never hold position involving law enforcement or custody of prisoners. At least 10 documented ANC representatives connected to the torture camp system were exactly in those positions. Not a single recommendation was followed. Not a single torturer or prosecutor was prosecuted. Not a single victim was compensated. The suits and the positions fit well. The record did not. Stay tuned for part 2. Thank you. Beloved South Africans, we continue on the ANC torture death squads that were formed during apartheid to suppress the freedom fighters, the real freedom fighters in South Africa, so that they can bring a counterfeit democracy. What the torture camps really were: 4 independent commissions between 1992 and 1993 confirmed the same facts. The ANC security departments in Bogotá operated detention facilities across Angola, Tanzania, Zambia, Uganda, and Mozambique. The worst was Quadro, built in 1979, demolished in 1988. It had no electricity, no running water, and insufficient space. Detainees were tortured using methods including repeated facial blows until eardrums busted, suffocating with hallowed pawpaw skin pressed over the face, electric shock, forced degradation, and solitary confinement. Executions were carried out by firing squad. Chris Hani himself acknowledged the approximately 18 or 19 at a single camp. The victims were not apartheid agents. The ANC's own Stewart Commission found that none of the 1984 mutineers were infiltrators. Their grievances was that they had volunteered to fight apartheid and were instead deployed into Angola's civil war. They were misled by ANC leaders into being missionaries in a foreign land in Angola. All these military veterans in our communities who enjoy everything for free, they get paid for nothing because there was never war in South Africa. I don't know why they call them military veterans, because they were not fighting the battles of the South African people. They were fighting ANC battles in Angola, in the foreign lands. Today they are called heroes for betraying the people of South Africa and killing genuine people who volunteered themselves, who thought that they were fighting against the apartheid government. They are betrayers, just like their ANC leaders. Those who died in those countries were killed for asking questions, for raising questions, raising concerns about conference, election, and investigation into the security department. Instead they received prison, torture, and death. The imperialist UN, who looked away, remained on the US State Department, or the imperialist UN looked away at all these things because they are the orchestrators, the main owners of South Africa. And the ANC remained on the US State Department's terrorist list until 2008. Nelson Mandela himself could not enter the United States without a special visa until that year. Yet, across 4 presidencies and both parties, American diplomats on the ground engaged the ANC leadership as the legitimate future government, while Washington maintained the formal designation. The Peace Corps placed operatives in East and Southern African during the 1960s. They are adjacent to ANC exile networks. The State Department's ground-level diplomats built parallel relationship with ANC leaders throughout the 1980s, even as official policy under Reagan's constructive engagement prioritized dialogue with Pretoria. Chester Kruger, Reagan's Assistant Secretary for African Affairs, designed the policy. Edward Perkins, Reagan's first black ambassador to South Africa from 1986 to 1989, managed the relationship during the final camp years. But the decisive institutional contribution came from a specific ecosystem when Bill Clinton appointed Delano Lewis as ambassador to South Africa in 1999. He was not selecting a career diplomat. Lewis was the former president and CEO of National Public Radio since 1993, from 1993 to 1998. The first black person in the role before NPR. He ran Peace Corps operations in Nigeria and Uganda after NPR. He assessed Thabo Mbeki's psychology for the State Department, writing the now leaked cable describing the ANC's government as still handicapped by the experience of the struggle and a leadership where enemies were everywhere. Lewis shaped NPR's editorial culture during the exact years when post-apartheid South Africa was being framed for American audiences. He then became the ambassador who framed the ANC government for Washington. Media narrative and diplomatic assessment merged in one career, and both served the same function. Present the ANC as the democratic inheritor of moral struggle, with no reference to the camps, the tortures, or the promotions. The anti-apartheid movement was used as a shield for terrorism and treason by ANC. The international solidarity infrastructure played a specific role. Paul Trewella, the exiled journalist who first published survivor testimony from Quatro in 1990, identified the anti-apartheid movement, AAM, as having operated open and covert censorship of ANC torture camp abuses. His journal, Searchlight South Africa, provided the primary source material that Amnesty International later used for own investigation. The liberal and left press in Britain and South Africa ignored that material. The AAM's function was not necessarily deliberate at every level. Thousands of members were acting in good faith against a genuine monstrous system, but the structural effect was absolute. The moral authority of anti-apartheid cause made the ANC internal crime invisible. Anyone who raised Quatro was immediately positioned as an apartheid apologist. The space for honest dialogue from within the solidarity movement was zero. After 1994, the AMM became ACTSA, Action for South Africa. Peter Hain, who led the anti-apartheid campaigns in Britain for the 1960s, remained its honorary vice president. The organization's stated mission is to combat the legacies of colonialism, racism, and apartheid. The legacy of betrayal, which is Quatro, is not mentioned. The architecture of selective memory and distortion of history continues under a new letterhead. Stay tuned for part 3. Thank you.